What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Viking Creative Studios, and today we're going to be talking about a cinema lens. We're going to be talking about the Sigma 50 to 100 millimeter T2 E-mount lens. So this is going to be specific to Sony, but it's going to be similar across the board for Sigma. They're known to be pretty reliable no matter which mount you use. We're going to take a look at this in both terms for photography and videography. This lens is designed to be for video. It's got all the gearing and stuff like that as any other cinema lens, but we did try it out for some photography as well, so I'll let you see some of those images and I'll give you my first impressions of this lens, so let's jump into it. Okay, so this Sigma lens is not cheap. This is a $4,000 lens. It is huge. We took it out in the field, we used it in the studio, and the thing I remember, like the first thing you notice about it is it's just so big. It's so heavy. It's like, I mean, I'd have to look up the specs of the exact weight, but it feels like a 4 or 5 pound lens. It is very, very heavy. I've used a Sigma 105-14 before, and that thing is light in comparison. It's all metal construction. Obviously, there's a lot of glass elements in that, being a cinema lens and having a range between 50 and 100 millimeter, which is probably where this lens's strong point is the fact that it is a versatile zoom that's fairly fast, T2. So T2 is very similar like an f-stop. T-stops are just a little bit more accurate. They're actually reading the transmission of light at the sensor, not the physics dimensions of the lens, versus f-stops are more rated on physics. But cinema lenses have T ratings that are actually measured at the sensor, so you're getting the correct amount of transmission of light that they advertise. In fact, one of the first things I noticed about the 50 to 100 Sigma is that if I actually put it all the way open, and it would say T2, but my camera would register it as a 1.8. So it's just a little bit more wide open than something that would be a typical f2, let's say. And there's always flux like that in lenses as well. A lot of people don't talk about it, but just because you get a 1.4, there might be a little bit of variance and stuff. So it's a very fast lens. You get really good shallow depth of field. The physical feeling of all the gearing and stuff like that is really smooth. It does have a tripod collar in the front that's reversible, so you can put it on the upper half or the lower half. And it's really needed. It is a very, very heavy beefy lens, and it's made to be rigged out on something big like a cinema camera. We used it on the A7S III as well as the A7 III. Both mounts were able to hold the weight of the lens, but like I said, it is definitely beefy. Now, because it's a cinema lens, there's no autofocus or anything like that. It's all manual. So using this handheld for photos was kind of tricky because the weight of it is so heavy. You have to hold the camera with one hand, and then you'd have to physically turn the dial at the same time while holding it all steady. And cinema lenses have a lot of rotation in the gears, so it takes forever to focus. That allows you to be really, really precise so you can get your focus exact, but it's also difficult because just how big the lens is. It's not really made for photography. It gives you some amazing results, but it's really made for video. Low light ability on this thing, I was actually pretty happy. It looked pretty good, especially for something so versatile as a 50 to 100. 50 mils, not bad. You can use in a lot of situations. Once you punch that into 100, it's obviously going to be a much tighter shot, and you can get some really cool depth of field and stuff like that, especially at T2. The thing about this lens is there wasn't a lot of ghosting. There wasn't a lot of flare either, so it was pretty good. Once in a while, we did have it kind of kick up a little bit of ghosting and flaring on like a street lamp or something, like a really bright LED. If it hit the front of the element, which is 82 millimeters, just right, I'd get a little bit of a flare, but for the most part, it is clean. It's a clean lens. You can tell that a lot of R&D went into this thing. It was built like a tank. You don't feel like it's gonna break. It feels really, really durable. Like, I feel like you could drop it and it would be okay, unlike a photography lens. We went out to Providence, we gave this thing a test, and it worked great. It worked really good. Like I said, the weight of it, carrying it around was kind of cumbersome, but it did work really, really well. The T2 is nice. If it was like an F4 or something, it would probably not be anywhere close to as versatile as I feel like. T2, you can go out in low light and get some really cinematic shots. One of the first big things I've noticed on this once we went to the city was even at obviously you're gonna have a T2 throughout the range, whether you zoom in or not, it doesn't change. There's a little bit of focus breathing, nothing too bad, but if you go to an object, say far away, like a distant building that has a lot of windows, and you punch in and magnify in to get your focus. I notice on, say, a photography lens, far away objects, you've got atmospheric haze and different elements like that, lighting, ghosting, things like that, where the image, just when you punch in at something really detailed far away, you don't get the super sharp focus. Like, it's just hard to tell if you're like critically focused or not. Just, you know, it's almost like the resolution can't, you know, it's just, it almost looks like it's not there. With these cinema lenses, they are definitely just better built, like they're sharper. So when you punch in far away, it's almost like if you were looking at it zoomed out, the image clarity, I guess you'd say, and the image sharpness of that is just pinpoint. It's perfect. It's so nice for like far away stuff. So, you know, if it had autofocus, I mean, it'd be like a killer wildlife lens, I feel like, but I mean, this is something that obviously you're gonna be used for videographers. It's really versatile. The fact that you have a zoom in a fast lens like this is really, really nice. Optically speaking, I really, really liked it. I felt like it went really well. Bokeh, it did have some of that cat eye shape in the corners. So obviously in the, you know, center of the lens is always gonna be the sharpest on any lens. And you get nice round, crispy bokeh, especially punched in all the way to 100. But as you go to the edge, you do get that cat eye kind of ovalish shape, you know, bokeh shape. But the bokeh is unbelievable, so if that's your thing, it's really, really gorgeous. Optically speaking, love the lens. It was great. Would I buy this full time? It's a $4,000 lens, so if you look at like, say, a 50 or 100 mil or something like that, it's kind of expensive for photography based. I mean, I could buy the 105-1.4, which I think for photography optically was better, and you've got autofocus. And that's also a heavy lens, but it's a prime lens, so you get a little bit more sharpness out of it. Even though this is a cinema lens, I feel like primes are pretty good. For a zoom, this is the sharpest zoom lens I've ever used. But for that price, I mean, I would just buy the Sigma 105 probably, and you could go and buy like a Zeiss 50 or something, like, you know, it's just, and it would be cheaper and it would be more practical. If you're doing like follow focus systems, obviously this has all the standard gearing and everything, but it's just so cumbersome. It's a very big lens, so I don't see myself buying that lens. It worked pretty good. It worked really well though. I mean, it was a nice lens. We did zoom it all the way into 100 millimeter. We slapped a couple extension tubes on there to get some really, really tight shots of some models' faces here, to get like their eyelashes, bokeh behind them with some lights, and try to see just how sharp it is. And it is tack sharp. It is stunning. Sigma has really absolutely killed this lineup. We have another lens we're going to be reviewing very soon, and it's from that same series. It's a 135 T2, so that's a prime lens, and we're very interested to see on how that compares being a prime to the zoom. Both of them being T2, both of them from that same lineup. Both lenses have an 82 millimeter front, and they're both tanks. So we're going to be coming out with another video very soon going over that lens and showing some results as well, because ultimately the lens is really sharp, but for the price, I mean, I just feel like for what we do, YouTube or filmmaking, even indie films, there are other lenses out there with autofocus now, with good autofocus cameras out there that would allow you a little bit more flexibility, even though this lens is really sharp. But that's all in all. I'd say like on a 1 to 10 rating, I mean, I give this thing like a 7.5. It was really optically good, but it is a really heavy lens. It's not something I could see myself carrying around all the time. You look a little crazy carrying around this big telescope of a lens, but you know, out of a 10 rating, I'd give this thing a 7.5 just because it is really sharp, but versatility wise and like actual in the field use, it's not something I could see myself using on a regular basis. Hopefully, if you've been looking at one of these Sigma cinema lenses, that one gives you a little bit more insight on the 50 to 100. And you know, we got some more lens reviews coming out, tons of gear stuff coming out as well. We've got the new Sony a7S III that we're testing out and reviewing, so stay tuned for that as well. We have a bunch of low light series videos with that camera coming out, so it's going to be a lot of blast. You're going to want to hit the like, the subscribe button, the thumbs up, all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys back here on another video soon.